Genghis Khan. Just the name brings up these incredible images, right? Brutal conquests, endless hordes of warriors, and just utter devastation. He's one of the most feared figures in all of history. But what if that's only half the story? Today, we're going to look past the legend to find the revolutionary ideas that built the largest land empire the world has ever seen.
For centuries, this was pretty much the accepted image, a ruthless barbarian, basically a force of nature who conquered through nothing but sheer violence and terror, a man who literally called himself the wrath of God. But again, what if that image is missing the most important part of the story?
And then you see this. At the turn of our last century, a major newspaper looked back over 1,000 years of history and gave him this incredible title. So how on earth does a man go from bloodthirsty savage to man of the millennium? Well, that's the big question we're going to try and answer.
So to really understand him, we have to strip away the myth and look at the innovator underneath it all, the brilliant organizer and military genius who completely changed the world.
His story begins with this powerful, almost unbelievable omen. The boy who would become Genghis Khan, Temujin, came into the world literally clutching a clot of blood in his fist. And legend says a shaman saw this and made a pretty bold prophecy. This child was destined not just to fight, but to become the greatest warrior in the history of humankind.
That prophecy would get tested almost immediately. After his father was murdered, Temujin's own clan abandoned his family, just leaving them to starve on the brutal Mongolian steppe. And it was right there, in that desperate fight for survival, that he learned his first and maybe his most fundamental lesson. He looked at all the warring Mongol tribes and saw their greatest weakness. They were constantly fighting each other. He saw that a single tribe was vulnerable, easily broken. But he realized their survival and their only path to real power lay in a single, totally radical idea: unity.
And he carried this simple, powerful metaphor with him from tribe to tribe. An arrow all by itself, it snaps easily, but a whole bundle of them, you can't break it. He urged them to stop fighting as scattered clans and start hunting as a single, unified wolf pack, organized, disciplined, and totally unstoppable.
But, uniting the tribes was really only the first step. To lead them, he introduced an even more revolutionary idea, one that would completely shatter the old traditions of aristocracy and build an army loyal not to bloodlines, but to pure ability. This put him in direct conflict with the old way of thinking, which was really represented by his own childhood friend, Jamuka. See, Jamuka believed power belonged to the nobles, by birthright. Temujin's idea was a game changer. Power should belong to those who earn it. This wasn't just a new strategy, it was a challenge to the entire social order.
Think about the incredible promise he made to every single nomad on the steppe. Your birth doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're the son of a chief or a shepherd. If you have courage and loyalty, you can rise all the way to the top. This idea was like a social bomb, and it drew the most talented and ambitious warriors from every single tribe straight to his banner.
And there is no better example of this meritocracy in action than the story of Jebe. During a battle, an enemy archer shot Khan's horse right out from under him. After the battle, Khan demanded to know who fired the shot. A man steps forward and confesses, fully expecting to die. But Khan, he was so impressed by his courage and his skill that he spared him, renamed him Jebe, which means the arrow, and made him a general. And Jebe went on to become one of his greatest commanders.
Okay, so this new army of talent needed a new way to fight. The Mongols were already masters of the horse, but Genghis Khan knew that just wasn't enough. His third great lesson was one of pure, ruthless pragmatism: adapt or die.
He completely ignored the medieval codes of chivalry and honor. To him, a faked retreat that led the enemy into an ambush wasn't cowardly, it was genius. He learned siege warfare from Chinese engineers that he captured. He used terror as a deliberate weapon. The only rule of war was to win.
So how big was this world-conquering army? You'd probably imagine millions, but the reality is actually stunning. At its absolute peak, his entire force was only about 300,000 men. They didn't conquer with overwhelming numbers, they won with superior strategy, incredible mobility, and discipline. They were a lightning bolt, not a tidal wave.
So finally, we have to confront the undeniable and frankly brutal cost of his vision. The creation of his world meant the destruction of many others, and his legacy is one of stark and often horrifying contrasts.
And this is where we see his just unfathomable duality. On one hand, you have a destroyer who leveled cities and may have killed millions of people. But on the other hand, you have a builder who created a continental postal system, the Yam, that moved information faster than ever before. He established a unified currency, secured trade routes, and, amazingly for the time, he enforced religious tolerance across his entire empire.
He was an illiterate nomad who championed the use of writing, a ruthless conqueror who created systems of global connection. Perhaps it's best said that he really embodied the duality of humanity itself, half savage, half civilized. He showed our capacity for both immense creation and immense destruction, often at the exact same time.
In the end, his story leaves us all with a difficult question, one that really echoes through history. He connected East and West like never before, but that connection was forged in conquest, and it was paid for in blood. It forces us all to ask ourselves, what is the true price of progress?